One of the things that I think is sometimes upsetting to people that I have talked about here before is that I am not one of those people who is looking for a cure for autism. Because I don't think that there is a cure for having a different sort of neurology, a different type of neurology. I think that different ways of thinking make the world a beautiful place and a more diverse place, and that without that we would all be a lot poorer. Now, I want to separate this from saying that obviously we have a lot of doctor's appointments. And that's not because I'm trying to cure my kids from having autism. That's because a lot of the times there are conditions that exist alongside autism. Now, as you'll see, we have a lot of neurology appointments and we have a lot of gastroenterology appointments. Especially when we're at the gastroenterology office, there are a lot of other kids that are on the spectrum there with us. I mean, I would say upwards of 50% of the kids that I see there on certain appointment days appear to be on the spectrum. That fits into what I hear from other parents. Gastro problems and also seizures are two of the things that you hear about a lot. A lot of kids who have autism also have epilepsy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't treat medical problems that your autistic child has. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I talk about here is not treating autism as a disease. I think that it can be very harmful when you talk about something in such a negative way that oftentimes becomes so tied in with the identity of a person. Many of the autistic adults that I know feel very strongly about identity first language. They very, very strongly relate to that identity side. I don't know that you can bash and say negative things or write negative things or speak publicly negatively about something that is so much a part of someone that you love and have it not be damaging to that relationship and have it not be damaging later on when they see or read or hear those words. I think it's very important to not set our children up to hate a part of themselves that is very much a part of themselves that there's nothing wrong with, that is just not the status quo. Normal is totally overrated. What even is normal? The most normal person in the world still has their struggles. Yes, there are certainly struggles that are unique to autism, but how can you cure a person of the way that their brain is wired, and why would you want to? We shouldn't be changing our children to fit some mold that the world expects. We need to create a world where people are more than just aware of our children, maybe even more than just accepting. We need to create a world where our children can thrive, where they can be who they're meant to be without any sort of stigma, without being held back by some expectation of what typical is. But back to what I started with, this talk of a cure. Sometimes you hear parents talk about how they had this child who was cured. I'm always skeptical of this. My own personal experience has made me more skeptical, and that is because I have had 3 girls who were very, very similar as toddlers. And if my choices had been different, if I had chosen a different path earlier on, I think that I could be one of those people telling one of those cure stories, and it would not be true, but I could probably be believing it and then be wondering why it didn't work on Maggie. And so that is what I want to talk about today. I know it took me a little while to get around to this. When Sadie was a toddler, she wasn't really any different from either of her sisters. When Sadie was 2 or 3 or 4, I am absolutely certain that if I had taken her to be evaluated, that she would have been diagnosed with autism. I have no doubt. She had so many sensory issues and she flapped pretty much nonstop with more stims than either of her sisters ever had put together. She had an enormous speech delay. She was very close to nonverbal until she was 3. She was about as verbal as Tessie. If you've spent much time around here, you've seen how verbal Tessie is. So she had a few words when she hit her 3rd birthday. She had an enormous gross motor delay. By far, she was our clumsiest kid. When she was 6 and she was finally evaluated, she was in the 2nd percentile for her gross motor skills. She had a huge fine motor delay. When she was evaluated when she was 6, her speech was at the 2-year-old level. Just across the board, huge delays. She was obviously really, really smart, like both of her sisters. And I just thought she was a late talker. And the sensory stuff, I really didn't know about yet. I mean, I have my own sensory things, so I just thought she was quirky like me. I did think the flapping was a little bit odd, but when we asked doctors about it, they would say it was neurological immaturity and that she would outgrow it. I didn't do anything. There is no miracle cure here. I didn't try anything. I didn't put her on any diet. I didn't do anything. However, on her own, around the time she was 4, she started to talk with a big speech delay, but she did start to talk. And by the time she was 6, she was no longer diagnosable, at least according to, I mean, there was definitely argument, and there's still sometimes argument, but when they do the ADOS, it comes back as saying, no, she's not on the spectrum, and she has a diagnosis of ADHD. She does extremely well in school. She doesn't have any behavioral problems in school. She's graduated from speech. She played basketball. She's in ballet, and she's really an amazing kid. I think probably if I had done some crazy diet, or if I had had her diagnosed when she was 2, just like Tessie, just like Maggie, she would have been diagnosed as severely affected because she was exactly like them at that age. But for whatever reason, as she developed, her trajectory with language made language more easy for her. And her sensory issues are less than her sister's. Her need to elope, because she did used to run, sort of faded away at around the age of between 3 and 4. She just stopped running until I still worried about her like bolting into the street because she just sort of lacked that sense of danger until she was about 8. But around 7 or 8, she really started to get it. It started to click. She started to be aware of those things. And now she's a huge help to me, and she's very much aware of those things. I can trust her to not bolt into the street. Basically, any crazy snake oil salesman fad that we had tried would have been wildly successful, because it was bound to be wildly successful, because developmentally she was going to be who she was going to be, even though she was starting looking very, very much like both of her sisters. And that's why I really can't guess what's going to happen next with Tessie. I have no idea. People ask me what I think, and some days I feel like I'm looking at Sadie. Some days she reminds me so much of Sadie that I feel like I'm looking back in time 10 years. And other times I feel like I'm looking at Maggie, and she reminds me so much of Maggie that I can't believe my eyes. So I don't know. And sometimes I realize that she's just Tessie, and that really she seems like she's probably somewhere right in between the two of them. But I honestly have no idea, because it's too early to tell. She's still really little. I have no idea where her language is going, because Maggie had about 10 words when she was Tessie's age, and Tessie has about 5 words. So she has less. But I don't think that really means anything at this point. Tessie has more eye contact and is more interactive in other ways, even though she has less words. And Tessie is way more clingy and less likely to just bolt off and take off and go away from me than Maggie was at the same age. I guess you could say they're different kids, which, I mean, obviously they're different kids. And if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, which is something that I have to remind myself frequently when I start comparing my kids. It's still almost impossible not to do it, though. I guess what I'm saying is that when I hear someone say that they know of or have a young child with autism and that that child was cured, I just wonder if naturally that was the trajectory, if they had a large developmental delay, and if that developmental delay, like Sadie's, would have for the most part resolved on its own and sort of gone in some other direction, like maybe ADD or ADHD like Sadie. On the other hand, the other thing that I see a lot of is people using these snake oil cures alongside more traditional therapies that have more of a scientific basis. And their child is going and putting in all of this hard work, learning how to function, learning how to speak, learning how to do fine motor and gross motor skills, learning how to live and how to function and how to use a spoon and a fork and do all of these things. They are putting in hours and weeks and months of work. And so are other people. Other people are helping and putting in hours and hours and hours of work. And at the same time, the parent's giving them vitamins or whatever. Hopefully not something insane like bleach enemas, but some parents do those extremely damaging or risky and horrible things. They use whatever the cure of the moment is. And then there are good results. And they start talking about how this thing worked. And I can't help but wonder, how come that thing gets credit for it? How come this unscientifically proven thing that they're using gets credit for it, and not the hours and hours of therapy that they've been in, not the hard work that the child has put in? Why doesn't that get credit for how well they're doing and how they're thriving? I think that a lot of the time that's what it is. Your kid has been working their behind off, learning, and they're developing, and that's why you're seeing gains. That's why you're seeing them doing better at home, because they're learning how to communicate with you, and they're learning how to deal with those sensory stimuli and with being overwhelmed. And I think that a lot of the time that has more to do with it than any imagined cure that someone has come up with to make a lot of money. Because that is what a lot of these protocols are. They are people who have realized that there are parents out there who are so desperate to help their children because there's so much fear surrounding autism that they will spend thousands, tens of thousands, whatever they have to recover, and I hate that word too, their child. And they take advantage. They take advantage of people who are desperate. We need to not be desperate. We need to accept our children for who they are. If there's a medical issue, absolutely get to the bottom of it. Do whatever it takes to help your child meet their potential, be the person that they're meant to be. But the person that they're meant to be isn't neurotypical. Not if they're autistic. Anyways, this is already really long because apparently I had a lot to say about it. That is it for today. If you like this video, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that thumbs up button. And if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.